what if the most flawless player you ever saw was hiding in plain sight? He wasn't flashy. He didn't score highlight reel goals every night. He didn't chirp opponents, break sticks, or seek the spotlight. To most casual fans, he was just another hardworking two-way center, the kind of player you appreciate but rarely talk about. But what if that very same player was quietly rewriting what perfection looked like in the NHL? A man who almost never made a mistake, who elevated everyone around him, who turned invisible moments, faceoffs, backchecks, stick angles, into silent victories that decided games. That man was Patrice Bergeron. And if you ever doubted how much intelligence could dominate a sport built on chaos, his story will change your mind forever. Because Bergeron didn't just play hockey, he solved it. Patrice Bergeron was born in the small Quebec town of L'Ancienne Lorette in 1985, the kind of place where hockey dreams begin on backyard rinks, not in elite academies. He wasn't the biggest, the fastest, or the strongest. Scouts saw a smart kid who worked hard, but nothing screamed future legend. When the Boston Bruins selected him 45th overall in the 2003 NHL draft, few noticed. He wasn't hyped like Eric Stahl or Ryan Getzlaf. He didn't dominate junior tournaments. He just understood the game. As an 18-year-old rookie, Bergeron cracked the Bruins roster and quietly produced 39 points. Not superstar numbers, but coaches immediately noticed something unusual. The kid rarely made bad decisions. He played like someone who had already studied every outcome before the puck even dropped. Even then it was clear. He didn't need to outskate anyone. He was always 2 moves ahead. As the seasons passed, Bergeron's game matured into something remarkable. He was never flashy, but everything he did had purpose. He could win face-offs, strip pucks, anticipate passing lanes, and turn defense into instant offense. That anticipation, that hockey IQ, became his superpower. Opponents started describing him as annoying to play against, not because he was physical, but because he was always there. Every time they thought they had space, his stick appeared. Every time they thought they could pass, he'd intercept it. By his mid-20s, Bergeron wasn't just a dependable center, he was redefining the role itself. The NHL officially recognized it when he began winning Selke trophies, awarded to the league's best defensive forward, and not just once, but a record-breaking 6 times across his career. That's not dominance, that's mastery. He became the benchmark for the 200-foot game, the perfect balance between offense and defense that every coach dreams of. Teammates said he made hockey look easy, opponents said he made it impossible, and fans, many barely noticed, because genius isn't loud, it's efficient. For 8 years, Bergeron had been Boston's secret weapon, but in 2011, the world finally saw what perfection looked like under pressure. The Bruins were chasing their first Stanley Cup in nearly 40 years. Game 7 against Vancouver, tension at its peak, the entire hockey world watching. And who scored the first goal? Patrice Bergeron. Who buried the third to seal the win? Patrice Bergeron again. When the final buzzer sounded, the cup belonged to Boston, and Bergeron's name was written all over it. He wasn't the loudest celebration. He didn't point to himself or bask in the spotlight. He just smiled, raised the cup, and moved on. Business as usual. That night he became a champion on every level. World Championship, Olympic gold, and now a Stanley Cup. The holy trinity of hockey, the triple gold club. And he did it all without ever seeming to break a sweat. For the casual fan, he was still just solid. For those who understood the game, it was like watching Mozart conduct chaos into harmony. Bergeron's brilliance wasn't just in his play, it was in how he carried himself when no one was watching. He never needed to raise his voice or demand attention. His consistency was his leadership. It radiated through the locker room like quiet gravity, pulling everyone into his standard without ever having to say much. As the years went on, Boston slowly transitioned from the Kara era into the Bergeron era. He wore the C with the calm authority of someone who didn't need to prove anything. Teammates said you could tell the culture of the team had shifted the moment he walked into the room. The loud speeches were gone, replaced by eye contact, calm reminders, and a look that said, "You already know what to do." Players who faced him in the face-off circle described the experience as suffocating. He studied every opponent, every habit, and every small twitch of the wrist. By the time most players reacted, Bergeron had already won the puck and turned the play the other way. It wasn't brute strength, it was chess-level anticipation played at lightning speed. But what made him a genius wasn't only the preparation, it was his empathy. He could read people the same way he read plays. Rookies said he made them feel at home within minutes. Veterans said he made them sharper just by sharing the ice. He didn't chase glory, he built systems around discipline and trust. In a league obsessed with highlight reels and statistics, Bergeron made intelligence his weapon of choice. And that's why when you look at his numbers, you notice something almost impossible. A career with virtually no costly mistakes, no controversies, no selfish moments, no drama, no ego, just relentless, almost mathematical excellence that everyone around him could feel, but few could truly understand. But perfection always comes with a price. Behind the calm expression and near-flawless execution was a body constantly pushed to its limits. Concussions, fractured ribs, torn muscles. Bergeron endured them all, often in silence. He played through migraines, broken bones, and injuries most players would use as an excuse to step aside. Yet for him, stepping aside never felt like an option. In the 2013 Stanley Cup final, he played through what doctors later called a medical marvel: a punctured lung, cracked ribs, and a separated shoulder, all at once. He was in the hospital the night after Game 6, but hours earlier, he was still taking faceoffs against elite competition. Most athletes would have collapsed under that pain. Bergeron simply adjusted his breathing pattern, modified his stride, and kept playing within the limits of control only he could manage. That night didn't just add to his legend, it revealed the depth of his obsession with precision. Even when injured, his decisions remained perfect. No reckless plays, no emotional outbursts, just pure, deliberate hockey. It wasn't reckless bravery, it was discipline carried to its absolute edge. He once said, "If I'm on the ice, it means I can help." That was his philosophy. Not drama, not self-sacrifice, just focus. And that's when fans and analysts alike finally realized Bergeron wasn't just disciplined, he was wired differently. He didn't need adrenaline or emotion to perform. He operated on logic and control. He'd built his entire career on doing the right thing, even when everything around him hurt. Because for Patrice Bergeron, perfection wasn't a result, it was a responsibility. In the 2020s, as stars got flashier, Bergeron somehow got better. Even in his late 30s, his defensive numbers improved. He was aging in reverse, proof that anticipation and intelligence never fade. In 2021, he officially became captain of the Bruins, but even then, his leadership felt the same: composed, consistent, selfless. He didn't dominate headlines, he dominated the tiny, invisible moments that define winning teams. When he announced his retirement in 2023, the hockey world paused. No controversy, no farewell tour, no drama, just a humble letter thanking the city, the fans, and the sport he'd mastered. Then, like a true professional, he disappeared into privacy. Rumors swirled about a comeback, but Bergeron quickly shut them down. He didn't crave one last moment in the spotlight. His legacy was already complete. That's the paradox of Patrice Bergeron. He looked ordinary until you realized he'd quietly been extraordinary all along. When analysts debate the greatest players of all time, the conversation usually tilts toward the flashy superstars, the Crosbys, McDavids, Ovechkins of the world. But inside locker rooms and among coaches, there's another name that always surfaces, spoken with quiet reverence: Bergeron. To those who truly understood the game, Bergeron wasn't just great. He was the template, the blueprint for how a modern NHL center should think, move, and lead. He was the invisible heartbeat of every team he played on, a player who made the entire system look smarter just by existing inside it. He turned defense into art. He elevated line mates who might have struggled elsewhere. He didn't need highlight reel plays to dominate. He dominated in the margins, the subtle decisions that decide games long before the scoreboard reflects them. And it wasn't just his 6 Selke trophies, his Stanley Cup, or his 2 Olympic golds that made his resume ridiculous. It was the consistency across nearly 2 decades. Every year, every shift, the same surgical precision. He didn't have peaks and valleys. He was the standard. Teammates would say he never had a bad game. Opponents would shake their heads after matchups, realizing they just spent 60 minutes trying to solve a puzzle that couldn't be solved. Think about that. Nearly 20 seasons in the NHL, and nobody can remember a night he truly cost his team. That's not luck. That's what happens when obsession meets discipline. Even his statistical footprint tells the story. Over 1,000 career points, a record-setting collection of Selke trophies, and one of the highest face-off win rates ever recorded. But the numbers only hint at the truth. The real genius of of Bergeron was in what didn't happen, the mistakes that never occurred, the goals that never against, the chaos that never unfolded because he was already there to stop it. He became the hockey equivalent of a chess grandmaster who never loses focus, always 3 moves ahead, always calm under pressure, always right. That's why when people call him the smartest player of his generation, it isn't exaggeration, it's recognition. Bergeron's story forces us to rethink what greatness actually looks like. Fans are drawn to the spectacular, the toe drags, the buzzer beaters, the jaw-dropping goals. But Bergeron's brilliance didn't live in highlights. It lived in the silent spaces between them. Every time an opponent hesitated, every time a pass was intercepted, every time a line change looked effortless, that was Bergeron's invisible fingerprint. He made hockey look like slow motion because his mind moved faster than anyone else's. Sports psychologists call it anticipatory intelligence, the ability to predict outcomes before they unfold. Bergeron embodied that concept better than anyone the game has seen. He didn't just react to the play, he ran simulations in his head, testing outcomes before committing to one. That's why his coaches trusted him in every possible situation. Last minute of a tied game, down a man on the penalty kill, or protecting a 1-goal lead in overtime. When Bergeron was on the ice, chaos disappeared. He didn't rely on luck or instinct alone. He relied on a mental framework, a system built on timing, trust, and anticipation. Even legends respected it. Sidney Crosby, Jonathan Toews, and countless others have called him the standard, the player every two-way center studies to improve their own game. To them, he wasn't competition. He was the model. Bergeron didn't just play hockey, and he optimized it, stripping away the noise and leaving only what mattered. That's why his game aged like fine architecture, timeless, efficient, and structurally perfect. Even as the NHL shifted toward pure speed and flash, his calm intelligence remained undefeated. He didn't chase trends, he defined sustainability, because while others tried to outrun the game, Bergeron simply outthought it. Since retiring, Patrice Bergeron has stayed close to the game, quietly, just the way he played it. He's not chasing cameras or commentary desks. He's mentoring from the background, shaping the next generation with the same subtle precision that defined his career. He's worked with young players, sharing insights on details most overlook, body positioning, timing, and the calm that separates panic from patience. His advice isn't dramatic. It's technical, deliberate, and deeply human. When asked what he misses most, Bergeron didn't mention crowds or celebrations. He said simply, the small details. The feeling when everything clicks. That sentence sums up his entire legacy. A man who found joy in mastery, not attention. Even in retirement, his presence lingers. Players model their routines after his discipline. Coaches use his tape to teach what perfect hockey looks like. He's become a quiet benchmark, the standard for how professionals should carry themselves when the spotlight dims. Because Bergeron never needed noise to make an impact, he just needed precision. And that's why his influence will last far beyond his playing days. Because every time a young center wins a faceoff, reads a play, or makes the smart decision instead of the flashy one, a little piece of Bergeron is still on the ice. Patrice Bergeron looked average to the naked eye. No wild celebrations, no viral highlights. But those who paid attention saw something deeper, the rarest kind of brilliance. He was hockey's quiet genius, the master of details, the man who never made a mistake because he refused to rush, to panic, to break from principle. In an era defined by speed, Bergeron proved that patience could still win. In a league built on chaos, he built order. And in a sport that rewards stars, he became the ultimate team player. So next time you watch a player who doesn't immediately stand out, ask yourself this: are they just average, or are they secretly a genius too?